Hello there. Welcome to Just the Discs. We talk about Blu-rays here from all eras. And today we are going to talk about some film noir. So mostly 40s and 50s here. And I just figured I would put these all together kind of in one because you folks that like classic films and noirs might be interested in having them all in one sort of episode. So let's start with the sort of out of the box noir in that it is a Western. It is Pursued from 1947, I believe. And this is directed by the great Raoul Walsh, who is, known for a lot of noir, but just known as a very solid craftsman of a filmmaker. I've talked about him recently with the Blu-ray release of The Man I Love, but he also has gotten some Blu-ray love on 4K, I want to say with Public Enemies? No, High Sierra has gotten a Blu-ray. Roaring Twenties got a 4K, I believe. They Drive by Night just got a Blu-ray. That's pretty cool. But so he's doing this right around the time of The Man I Love and some other westerns, a few war films. But he is a director that I like, and I've always enjoyed his work, and there's a lot to dig into in terms of his career. I know he's one of those filmmakers I remember hearing about with the Cahiers de Cinema, and how, they were excited about the works of, Howard Hawks and Hitchcock to a degree, and Raoul Walsh was in that conversation, and I was always like, well, I know Hawks and Hitchcock and some of the others, but I didn't know him. And I was like, who is Raoul Walsh? And he's a very distinct looking director. He wears an eye patch, much like Andre de Toth. They're two of the eye patch wearing. I mean, John Ford wore an eye patch at some point too. Ford was part of that group. But yeah, this is a really great noir Western starring Theresa Wright and Robert Mitchum, as well as Dean Jagger, Alan Hale Sr., Harry Carey Jr. It is one of those movies that you kind of go, oh, that's cool. It's doing both things. And I discovered this one early on because of a series of Republic Pictures VHS tapes. And there was a handful of them that had Scorsese introductions. It was like Scorsese Presents. I remember there was this one. There was a movie called A Double Life with Ronald Coleman. Forgetting who starred in that. And there was a couple more. Johnny Guitar was one of those. And they all had these like intros where it was not like a Blu-ray or DVD. It was like right at the beginning of the tape. Scorsese comes on and he talks about why he liked the movie. And you could see it was kind of like, Scorsese recommends. And at that time in college when I saw it, I was like, oh yeah, I'm all about anything he's recommending. In fact, I still am now, of course. But back then I was like, what is that movie that I would never ever have sought out otherwise? I was a fan of Robert Mitchum then, but not the super fan I've become. So anyway, Mitchum sort of plays a boy haunted by nightmares about the night his entire family was murdered, and he's brought up by a neighboring family in the 1880s, and he ends up falling for his lovely adoptive sister, that's Theresa Wright, but his nasty adoptive brother and mysterious uncle want him dead. And so it becomes complicated. 2022 HD master from a 4K scans of the 35 original camera negative, dupe negative, and composite print. So you've got multiple sources. That's a rarity in this case. I just know it looks very, very good. And this does include that introduction from Martin Scorsese, which goes way back to the VHS tape, I remember. It also has an audio commentary by film historian Imogen Sarah Smith, who is top tier classic film and noir commentator, like maybe one of the top two. On the right day you ask me, I say she's the best. She's really, really great. Legendary director Raoul Walsh, High Sierra White Heat, comes from him comes what Martin Scorsese hails as Hollywood's first Western noir. Screen icon Robert Mitchum plays Jeb Rand, one of Hollywood's early anti-heroes, an orphan tuned turned war hero caught in the middle of a violent family feud. Written by Niven Bush, who wrote Duel in the Sun. Pursued is the story of Jeb's love for his stepsister, Thorley, a terrific Theresa Wright from Shadow of a Doubt, of course, which triggers a fatal gun battle with her brother, Adam, that's John Rodney from Key Largo. Despite this tragedy, she marries Jeb, intent on avenging the death of on their wedding night. But Jeb's dark past closes in with the arrival of a stranger with a score to settle who sets off a brutal climax of treachery, murder, and shocking revelations. Judith Anderson plays Mrs. Callum, the widow who takes in young Jeb. Dean Jagger plays Grant, a one-armed stranger who seems bent on tormenting Jeb. Alan Hale plays Jake Dingle, a casino owner who becomes Jeb's business partner. I really like Alan Hale in this period, especially when he's like the buddy, like he often was with Errol Morris. I'm sorry, not Errol Morris. With Errol Flynn. He just is fun as that guy, I find. And Harry Carey Jr. plays Prentice, a young man also in love with Thorley. Gorgeous black and white cinematography by James Wong Howe. That's one of the things I remember loving about this. And a rousing score by Max Steiner, who of course did Casablanca, among other things. This is one of the great composers of the period. Further enrich Walsh's brilliant blending of two distinctly American film genres. So James Wong Howe, I mean, I remember hearing about him early on, like the film, like John Alton and some of these other cinematographers that were doing noir around this time and being like, oh, wow. And then later I would discover Nicholas Musaraka, who did all the, a lot of the Val Lewton pictures and how great those look and just how amazing black and white can look, and James Wong Howe is just one of those guys that just absolutely is at the top of the craft of cinematography at this time. And even past this time, I remember a great story about him shooting Seconds and how spry he was, and how I remember Frankenheimer telling me a story about how like they had to go up a hill for some shot, and how James Wong Howe, who was older than Frankenheimer at the time, just kind of zipped right by him, had so much energy for a guy of his age, and obviously still could really shoot. Like if you watch Seconds, that's a beautifully shot black and white movie. Anyway, so I forgot about James Wong Howe, another reason to watch this, but just a great Western noir with a great cast. And if you're a Mitchum fan, it's a must, it's an absolute must. So definitely glad this is getting this had an olive Blu-ray, but this is an even better scan and extras. And so very cool. That's like, one of my favorites of the year so far, if I'm being honest. Then we have this next iteration of the Dark Side of Cinema series. This is 19, I think. I love this series. I love that Kino continues to do it, and they're announcing new volumes all the time. And I guess there may be some that we'll see in the future that may be repackaging of older noir titles, which I'm totally fine with, honestly. This series is so good, and there's so many that I'm sure people have missed that it's not a bad thing to come back to some titles, and make them part of this series, because I know these box sets are ones that a lot of people are fans of. So this includes 3 films, Dark City, No Man of Her Own, Beware My Lovely, and I will go through those now. So let's start with Beware My Lovely, which is one that I had not seen, and one that is very interesting. From 1952, the big stars of it are Ida Lupino and Robert Ryan, and it is fairly contained. I can't remember if it's based on a stage play. No, I don't know if it is. It's a new 2020 HD master by Paramount from a 4K scan. Yeah. Screen heavyweights Ida Lupino and Robert Ryan square off in this stylish, atmospheric thriller. Wealthy widow Helen Gordon, Lupino, hires drifter Howard Wilton, that's Ryan, as a handyman to do chores around her rambling mansion. What she doesn't know, Howard Wilton is insane. Insecure and paranoid, Wilton thinks everyone, including Helen, is against him, and he suffers from memory lapses and extreme mood swings. I would say almost personality shifts, if you want to say an extreme mood swing. She's soon a prisoner in her own home after Wilton locks the doors and tears out the phone. His mood swings from violence to complacency. But after Helen gets a message to, this is telling too much of the movie. I don't want to do that. Beware My Lovely is a spine-chilling suspense story by cinematographer Georgie Descant, from On Dangerous Ground. Written by noir specialist Mel Donnelly, The Spiral Staircase, House by the River. Oh, interesting. That makes sense. And helmed by noted director Harry Horner, who did The Heiress and The Hustler. Well, not The Heiress. I'm thinking of... Anyway. So, yeah, it becomes fairly contained at a point. Like, we see an incident at the beginning of the movie with... It's done kind of impressionistically, a little bit, with the Robert Ryan character, and then he hops a train to get out of town after this incident and ends up in Ida Lupino's town and gets hired. He seems very meek and sweet and very willing to do a good day's work, including scrubbing floors and polishing, like that's his specialty or whatever. And so it's surprising when, well, not really, because we've seen the beginning of the movie, but to her, it's very surprising when suddenly he becomes very dark and, doesn't want to let her out of the house, and it doesn't look like she's going to be able to get out, and she has to go through the whole rigmarole of trying to be nice to him at first, and then maybe pretending to try and be nice so that she can get away, and the escape becomes very difficult, and she's really stuck in the house for a long time. So it's tough in that sense, but it is only 77 minutes, so it's fairly contained in that way. Yeah, interesting to see these two together, especially after On Dangerous Ground. I feel like they may have even done another movie together that I'm blanking on, but I do enjoy them in this, and this is one that I hadn't seen before. Has an audio commentary by professor and film scholar Jason A. Nye, who's another of my favorite noir commentators. Was just listening to his tracks on the Whistler set, and he does a great job on those as well, but he's done tons of these, so he's a pro. Okay, then we have No Man of Her Own. Now this one's interesting because it's directed by Mitchell Eisen, who I always think of as Mitchell Eisen, who I always think of more for his comedies, because he would do things like Remember the Night and Easy Living, based on the Preston Sturges scripts, and then Midnight, which is Billy Wilder and Charles Brackett, and those are three of his best movies, as far as I'm concerned. Three great comedies from the 30s and 40s. And then he did Hold Back the Dawn as well. Death Takes a Holiday. But yeah, so this is a little different in that sense, because it is about a penniless pregnant woman who adopts the identity of a rich woman killed in a train crash. And it's got Barbara Stanwyck, John Lund, Phyllis Thaxter. It is interesting. This one I've seen, but it's been a little bit. But I do remember this idea of this woman taking on the identity of another woman. This is a 2020 HD master by Paramount Pictures from a 4K scan. Every door closed against her. A woman faces the age-old problem of her sex. The incandescent Barbara Stanwyck shines as a woman torn between a comfortable lie and the painful truth in this heart-wrenching noir classic. Helen Ferguson, penniless, pregnant, and dumped by her slimy boyfriend Steve, Lyle Becker, assumes the identity of a pregnant woman who was killed in a train crash. Eventually, Helen's sordid past catches up with her when Steve arrives demanding money to keep her true identity a secret from the man who loves her, John Lund. Gorgeously shot by cinematographer Daniel L. Pfapp, who also did The Big Clock, and directed by Hollywood ace Mitchell Eisen. This pitch-black masterpiece of harrowing melodrama was adapted from the book I Married a Dead Man by crime-writing king Cornell Woolrich, which is great. I forgot this was Cornell Woolrich based. Of course, he did Rear Window, among many, many others. I was talking about him recently with the release of the most recent Flicker Alley Blu-ray that has a lot of Cornell Woolrich material that it's based on. Anyway, yeah, very interesting movie. Has that great suspense of will she get found out, and Barbara Stanwyck, obviously fantastic. So it's really wonderful to have this. Oh, Kathleen Freeman is in this too. I'm a big fan of her. She's in a lot of Jerry Lewis movies. She's the landlady in Dragnet. That was my first memory of her because she's very foul-mouthed in that. Anyway, I like Kathleen Freeman. So this has 2 audio commentaries, one from, of course, the great Imogen Sarah Smith, and then one from Julie Kurgo and writer-filmmaker Peter Henkoff. So you get double commentaries. Very good stuff for this. I love the care they take with these commentaries on the Noir sets. Now, Dark City is our last in this box set, and this one is from director William Dieterle, who is definitely a name that you'll recognize from, he did The Hunchback of Notre Dame, Portrait of Jenny, I'm a big fan of, Jewel Robbery with William Powell, an early pre-code. There's a great one, I'll Be Seeing You. That's another one with Joe Cotton. He's in Portrait of Jenny. And The Turning Point, which is part of a Noir box set from Imprint, I believe. One of my favorite discoveries in recent memory from 1952. Anyway, great director, really solid. And this one has been available on a Blu-ray. Like Pursued, I think it was Olive Films. Charlton Heston stars with Elizabeth Scott, Vivica Lindfors, Dean Jagger again, Jack Webb, Ed Begley, and Harry Morgan. I mean, this is a really good cast. And Don DeFore, who I don't love Don DeFore. There's something just slightly annoying about him. He's in It Happened on Fifth Avenue. That's a movie I like. He's in Too Late for Tears. That actually works somehow in that performance. But he's in a bunch of movies. He's kind of like Jack Carson, but Jack Carson's way more affable for me. There's just something kind of dopey, but I don't know. Anyway, not to get all down on Don DeFore, my apologies. Because Heston and Elizabeth Scott are really the headliners here. So this one, 2022 HD master by Paramount from 4K scan, a tense, tough drama of underworld violence and revenge. After losing his company's $5,000 cashier check in a crooked card game, a stranger in Chicago commits suicide. The other gamblers, including Danny Haley, played by the steely screen legend Charlton Heston in his Hollywood debut, I forgot about that, worry about the dangers of cashing the check, but this soon becomes the least of their concerns when the head of the group is found hanged. Police Captain Garvey, that's Dean Jagger, concludes the hanging to be a case of homicide and discovers that the strangers had a mentally deranged brother who is out for vengeance. Fran, Elizabeth Scott, a torch singer who's desperately in love with Danny, begs him to run away with her before it's too late. This stunningly cynical morality tale also features the stars of TV's Dragnet 1967, Jack Webb and Harry Morgan as Danny's gambling partners. Directed by the dynamic William Dieterle and bathed in black and white cinematography by Victor Milner. This has an audio commentary by author film historian Alan K. Rohde. Another one of those top-tier classic film and noir commentators. Always does an excellent job, always very thorough, and often very funny in his asides. But yeah, very good stuff, and one I haven't seen since the Olive Blu-ray. So nice to check out a new scan of it with a great cast. And yeah, very cool. So that's the Noir set 19. And then lastly, we have this one here, which I didn't get a chance to check out yet, but which I am curious about. Saigon, 1947. Now, this stars Alan Ladd and Veronica Lake, and they, of course, were known for their collaborations. They had several. This Gun for Hire, I think, was the first one in 1942, and then they would go on to do The Glass Key, which is my personal favorite, which is the basis for Miller's Crossing. Like, if you watch it, it's very much... it's based on the same author that wrote The Maltese Falcon, and it is one of those movies that is very... Dashiell Hammett, of course. Very much the prototype for Miller's Crossing. Like, when you watch it, you'll be sure to notice that. But then they did The Blue Dahlia in 1946, and then this in 1947. So now this one also stars nobody that I really know off the top of my head, but I'm still intrigued. A brand new HD master from a 2K scan of the 35 camera original fine grain. Following their noir classics, This Gun for Hire, The Glass Key, and The Blue Dahlia, Screen legends Alan Ladd and Veronica Lake team up for their fourth and final time in Saigon. So this is their last movie together. After World War II, Larry, that's Ladd, learns that his flying buddy Mike will only live a short while longer due to shrapnel injuries. In order to finance one last wild trip for his friend, he accepts a lucrative flying job from a crooked profiteer. The plane takes off with sultry Secretary Susan, that's Lake, on board, who of course falls for dashing Larry. However, danger awaits when they are forced to land the plane and smuggle cargo in Vietnam with the police hot on their trail. Directed by Leslie Fenton, Saigon is a breathtaking romance-laden adventure for Lake and Ladd. So almost a little bit more of an adventure noir, if you will, it sounds like. Maybe not even a noir, but I always think of those two together as noir, no matter what. Audio commentary by film historians Lee Gambin and Alyssa Rhodes. So a commentary that was recorded obviously before Lee Gambin passed away, R.I.P., but always enjoyed his tracks, and he has many. So I look forward to checking this one out posthumously. But yeah, as the last collaboration between Veronica Lake and Alan Ladd, this is definitely of interest, I would think, to classic film fans everywhere. And yeah, I think we still have... I have a Glass Key Blu-ray from... I want to say from the UK, from not Masters of Cinema. But I don't know if that's gotten a stateside release yet. I'm just double checking here. Oh yeah, it has. Sorry, it came out from Shout Factory. That's my bad. Yeah, that's a great disc actually, and it's cheap too. It's only about $12.50 on Amazon right now. Highly recommend the Glass Key if you haven't checked that out, by the way. And